All right, welcome to the Blanc Township Board of Trustees meeting for Thursday, August 8th. And Mr. Guzek, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to our guests. At this time, I would ask for an approval of both the consent agenda and the regular agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Support.
Okay, there's been motion support. Any discussion, any changes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? At this time, we will open the floor for any public comment. We ask our residents to give their name and address and to keep their comments to 3 minutes or less. So if anybody would like to come forward and say anything, please feel free. Okay, Mr. Erd, would you like to speak? Good evening.
Good evening, Ed, 721 Newport Road. I'm glad I don't have a big list here. I just wanted to make a comment on your website. You have a picture of the pond, okay? I call it a lake. It's probably 10 acres, so it's probably a lake. And you have a dog swimming in it. And I can remember back in the early 2000s, I would do that with my dog, take him out there. But currently that lake is real murky. And I don't know what's happened through the years. It's gotten worse and worse. So, you know, maybe we can take a look at that, clean it up a little bit. I don't know if it's possible, you know, what's happened, but it should be cleaned up. It'd be nice to let I do have another golden retriever to run in again. They enjoy that. But anyhow, you know, because we did get millage money, you know, and I do notice that the millage money, we're going to repair some fields and stuff, and we have a lot of commerce coming because we have these teams coming here. But let's remember, those are only, the last one comes twice a year. And we did sell a millage to clean the park up, make it look good, and be usable for the people of this community. And that's why most people voted for that. And perhaps maybe some of the fields that are being used by these teams, some of that, the fees they pay can go toward maintaining them fields, so it doesn't become a burden on the millage. Just look at it. I'm not saying that's absolutely possible or joint or moving money around, but we do want to make the park look good, and I just want to say that maybe we can clean that pond up and get to that point. I don't think you're supposed to let your dogs go in that pond, but there's no sign anymore, so if I had my dog out there and it was clean, I'd let him run it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Erd. Good evening.
Good evening, guys. My name is Justin Cooper. I live at 5238 Belsey Road. Been a member of this community for 18 years now. I have a couple issues, and I don't know, first time ever visiting one of these meetings.
Well, welcome.
We have a new roundabout at Hill and Belsey Road.
Right.
But that roundabout's gathering trash, a lot of trash. Debris. I don't know if a sweep service is something that could be brought out, could maybe be addressed, maybe once a month, something of that nature. I see it because I obviously live in the area and I see it all the time. Another thing I notice in the summer months especially is Belsey Road is not monitored that well by enforcement of the speed limit. From Perry Road to Maple Road, there's no posted speed limit signs. I've been told by the sergeant it's 55. A lot of vehicles in the summertime take advantage of that and excess that speed, especially motorcycles. I get a lot of them going down, up and down the road at a lot. Loud pipes too, and I know there isn't always enforcement there too. The other thing, blight. We're looking at putting our house up for sale, a bigger house, something in the area, but I've got neighbors that don't maintain their property as well as I do, that have cars sitting in their driveway. 3-4 months now, I have neighbors 4 or 5 houses down. He has 10, 11 cars sitting in his driveway. Mm-hmm. I know there are ordinances in place about keeping your vehicles insured, but I don't see that being enforced, and I don't know why. I did file a complaint about that. I have not seen anything happen with that, so some of the issues that I have as a homeowner in Grand Township.
I appreciate, I have a couple questions just to clarify. So the trash that you're seeing in the roadway, is that in the road or
It's
where's?
where the road split, you know, from yielding from one section to another section. It builds right at the quarters where all the, I want to say the triangles are.
Okay.
I mean, you can take a quick drive by there and see.
Yep.
I did see where people messed around about, took out some signs, they repaired the signs from the back end. But it just seems to be building and building and building. There was a couple accidents, they cleaned that stuff up, nothing major. It's just road debris, I see. And it's just a matter of navigating it sometimes too. I mean, it being in the middle of the road. Rocks, papers, trash, just various items.
Okay. In terms of the speed limit, I'm not sure what it is, but we can check on that. But as far as the blight, how long ago did you turn in the car?
I made it probably about 3 weeks ago.
Okay. They give them a few days. By law, we have to give them, I believe, 10 days, something like that. Is that it, Mr. Rubin?
They verify the complaint, code enforcement takes it, and then they're out on their next time, they'll go out and look at it, so probably within 24 hours. Then they come back and type it up and send it out. People have 10 days to comply after that, so if they don't comply, then it gets returned visit from code enforcement, so it could be in the works, I just don't know.
It's understandable. I mean, just, it's the point now where they have a boat sitting on the side of their house. I don't know the enforcement of that, but it's been sitting there since fall.
As long as it's back 3 feet from the front edge of the house, then it's allowed in the side yard.
And,
But as far as non-running vehicles or non-licensed vehicles, they're not allowed in the driveway. So, you know, our enforcement people will be glad, and they do act on it. But, you know, for us to go around and they do, you know, some neighborhoods, we've targeted certain neighborhoods, but, you know, to have them drive around constantly looking for those things would be quite an effort.
You know, neighbors bring it to you guys' attention more than anything, you know.
Yep.
But I live next door, I see it day in and day out, and discouraging them on it.
Sure.
You know, I pay my taxes, I try to keep my place nice, pristine, and it's not gonna do me any good like that next door, when I try to market my house for sale.
Right.
It's a little discouraging, and it's not a first time, it's a repeat offender too, so. Has there ever follow-ups on that? I mean, if it, from year to year?
You mean as far as somebody who's a repeat offender, if we've got to keep sending them in?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure how that works. I don't know,
I mean, they
Mr.
had an
Laddie
issue
or?
where I reported them last year, and they
Right.
corrected the issue and got the 2 cars out of there, and here we are almost a year later, and it's the same scenario.
Good question.
We do have the ability to ramp up penalties on folks, folks with multiple counts, but also with multiple incidences as well.
Well, thank you for your time.
Okay,
Appreciate
and
it.
we'll look into these issues.
Thank you.
Is that the Al Mansour runabout?
No, we never have trash on my.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, and that's, you know, we had interest in making that roundabout look really nice, but the problem is who's going to maintain it? You know, the road commission puts it in and then, you know, we have the overpass on Hill Road and 475, that the debris in the roadway on that bridge was just astounding. And, you know, the road commission didn't take care of it, so actually our DPW went out there, even though it's not their job, and I forget what they removed, like 2 to 4 tons worth of gravel and debris off that overpass 2 years ago. So the county street sweepers, they claim, you know, make it around everybody's neighborhood every 2 years, but I haven't seen them ever since I've lived in my subdivision.
It's crazy, because I've seen one the last month. It's always run around. I've never seen him clean anything, but I see him going up and down Belsey, and I see him going downhill.
Is that the county's?
Yeah, it has to be, it's not ours.
County's in charge of the road.
I don't think that's, I know the one that you're talking about.
And I
but
thought
that's
maybe it
just a
was
tiny one. It's the
contracted
size
by a
of
subdivision
I
or
haven't
something,
seen
but
it, yeah.
it's
Yeah, it's
crazy.
like the size of a golf cart. It's not like a real.
Well, a little bit bigger
It
than.
might be for a parking lot then.
Yeah, that's what.
But yeah, I haven't seen the one from the
Mr.
county
Chair.
over here. Yes.
Just a word of precaution is that Mr. Justin probably should look into the homeowners association bylaws also.
Yeah, if you have a do you have a homeowners association there?
It doesn't have bylaws probably, and
Well, it might, it's in Williamsburg Farms. Well,
That street sweeper you're referring to, I see that a lot by the new pipe being put in by consumers.
That's what I think.
Oh, that's what it is.
From the road.
Yeah.
that's,
That's what I think it is.
good point. But the homeowners association may have some clout with some of those residents as well. Okay, anybody else wish to comment? Okay, we will close public comment and we will go to the approval of our minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes of July 9th, 9/11, 9th, 11th, and 23rd.
Is there support?
Support.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a question. Should the minutes fall under a policy, how a minute should be written? Should we create a policy?
I believe we have one. Is it in that manual, Dennis, that we're
It
going
is.
to? Okay,
Okay.
so we'll be reviewing that as well.
Thank
Good
you.
point, Mr. Massey. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, we will move to our operational issues, and the first item on the agenda is the board will consider a resolution for the revision of the date for the Truth in Taxation public hearing to be held August 27th, 2019. The Truth in Taxation hearing is something that the state requires us to do annually, and so each year we have the feat of trying to explain to people how the wording of this that's dictated by the state of Michigan really is misleading, but I'll leave that up to our Director of Assessing, Becky Salvati, to present and explain a little bit.
Isn't connecting again.
Yeah, see if when you replug it in.
There was something that Robbie. Do you have your computer on? No. Oh. There it is. Okay.
You want me to increase the size? Let's do this. And then let's do this.
Well, I was,
And then you can just hear.
yep. All right, I'm just here to explain this notice and how the numbers are calculated. The truth in taxation, it's mandated by law. We can't avoid it. The only way you can avoid the truth in taxation hearing would be to have your budget already set. It's fine.
Just want to make sure I pick you up the TV.
I don't
So-
understand what you just said either.
On the third page, the base tax rate fraction,
Becky, can you repeat that line that you said?
what, as far as,
That this shouldn't go until the budget's already set?
if the budget had already been set, we wouldn't have to have a truth in taxation hearing. But being the budget isn't set yet for next year, by law, it's mandated that we have to have a truth in taxation hearing. So the base tax rate fraction on page 3, it's calculated out to .9740. That is the amount we would have to reduce each of our millage rates by if we weren't to have this hearing tonight. Or that's going to be set for August 27th.
So it'd have to be reduced by this amount if we didn't have the hearing.
If we didn't have the hearing, this is the factor that would have to go against each of the millages that we currently have.
And this is because of the Headley Amendment?
No,
No?
this is truth in taxation for budgeting.
Okay.
So the next page, page 4, without the truth in taxation, the highest millage we could have, it shows all of our current millages reduced by that factor, and that's the highest amount that we could have for our millage without having this hearing. And that's 6.6474 mils. that becomes important later on, because although we don't use it, it's used in these calculations. So, if you go to the next one, millage reduction fraction, Headley. We have to reduce our millage rates by a fraction so that we roll back our millage rates because of our increase in our taxable value. And it didn't used to be a factor, but now we have to roll back our millage rates, as well as Proposal A is limiting the amount of increase from the cost of living. So we're never going to catch up. In a falling, when we were falling, we fell 20% in 1 year. But when you're coming back, you're never going to come back at the rate that you fell at, because we have limits. So if you go to slide 6.
I have a question, Mr. Chief.
Yes, Mr. Massey.
I have a problem with increases.
With the word?
With the word property increases.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
So if you go to the millage reduction fraction calculation, you can see that our 2018 taxable value, $1,295,000,000, and then for 19 we're at $1,298,000,000. So we have to take the rollback of 0.9974. We have to do that. We can't negate that. We have to take that rollback.
Excuse me? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Manager.
Yep. So just so I understand this, I get the taxable value, 18, 19, et cetera. But what, can you explain to me what the losses are and what the additions are?
The losses would be, let's say there was a fire
Okay?
or a demo of a garage or something. Those come off our roll as losses. And then the additions are all our new construction.
Building becomes a church, parsonage, so it goes off the tax rolls.
That's treated a little differently, but the losses are straight losses with,
What about MTT rulings?
those are adjustments.
Okay.
So these are straight losses and additions. So,
So, I'm sorry, getting back to what Supervisor Bennett said, so if something gets classified differently, that wouldn't be considered a loss?
no, that's taken out of the equation because it's moved from one class to another.
Even though we're losing the tax, well,
Well, it goes out of one area, but it comes back into the others. So it's not, we don't use it as losses.
okay.
They aren't newer losses, so. But this millage reduction fraction makes it so that we don't collect any more money the next year than what we did in the prior year. So they want to take those losses and additions out, so you're just working what was there.
Just clean numbers.
So
Comparables.
if you look at page 7, the millage reduction fraction, this is the total amount that would be allowed. If you look at the mosquito, we don't levy that amount of mills at all. That's the maximum we could if we needed to pay our bill, but we don't ever take that full millage, but that's the maximum that could be allowed. This number we don't use for anything either, but it comes into play. Slide 8 shows what we're proposing as the millage. 6.7675 mils. And you'll see, if you take last year's millage rate times that 0.9974, you'll get these millages in all cases except the mosquito millage. The mosquito millage, we had some money left from last year. I took that and made the best estimate we could to cover the bill this year. And it went down from 6.1 .1610 to .1210. So that's a pretty dramatic drop for that. Slide 9. Here's some real important numbers. The base tax rate that we did in the first slide, that's what's used to calculate a lot of this information, even though we don't use it. Our 2018 taxable value, the 2018 millage rate, 6.8250. The 2019 taxable value, the 2019 proposed millage. Our proposed millage is less than last year's millage. We're proposing 6.7675. That's important. You're not increasing the millage rates. Even though all that jargon says there's an increase, it's not an increase. In the big scheme of things, you're actually decreasing the millage. So the way in the truth in taxation notice, if you look, the way it's calculated, it's from your proposed millage minus your base tax rate. Okay, we don't use the base tax rate for anything, but the state calculates it that way. So it looks like we have a .1201 increase. It's the way the state wants it. So we're doing what the state wants, but it's truly not an increase. We're actually decreasing the millage. And then the percentage increase is that proposed
That's the next
increase.
page. That's on the next page, right?
Yeah, the proposed increase divided by that base tax rate.
It's the next page.
The percentage increase. It's on page 10.
You're on page 9.
And that's how we got the 1.81 that's going to be on the notice. The prior one, we calculated it slightly differently and it rounded a little different. But this is where that increase comes in that public notice. Again, the base tax rate isn't what we used for taxes, but that's what we have to use for this notice. The next slide, slide 11. This is a percentage increase if not approved. Here's all the jargon that we go through. Again, it's based on the base tax rate. We're actually lowering the taxes. So these are all just calculations to get that notice published the way the state wants it. If you go to slide 12, here's the example. $100,000 taxable value, you'll see the 18 tax rate on 100,000 taxable, the proposed 19 tax rate on 100,000, it's actually a decrease. So you're actually decreasing the tax rate. You're not increasing it. All those calculations are on that base tax rate that we don't use. If you vote no, it's on that base tax rate as though we didn't have this hearing at all. If we didn't have this hearing, you'd be going down to the 6.6474. So, in a nutshell, I'm just here to tell you that this is not a tax increase, even though that's what the paperwork shows. So, we can go into it further when we have the actual hearing, but I was just here to explain this notice that it's not an increase.
Right. Well, we're going to be going through this again in 2 more weeks for
Well, I'll get you
hearing.
more information to deep dive into it more for the hearing
Okay.
itself, but I just wanted you guys to understand that it's not a tax increase.
I know one of the things that we talked about on Tuesday, and I think we've had some discussion even prior to the board meeting, was maybe some kind of fact sheet that would explain it for residents. I know, this here is very detailed, but I like this very last page, you know, but, and I understand, you know, you
I
wanted
know.
to show the math of how we arrived at that.
But if somebody wants to work their way through it, this is how to work your way
Right.
through. Some people have to have a visual to understand what's
Exactly.
going on.
Well, I appreciate that. I
And
need one.
I can't just hear what's going on and
Right.
understand it. I gotta look at it to digest what's in front of me.
Maybe we make the presentation available, I don't know. But Mr. Lehman and then Mr. Massey.
I think really, if you look at this last page, you know, rather than go through the base tax rate calculations for the average resident, really those are being used, it's what the state requires. The language in the notice, like we talked about on Tuesday, is what the state requires. Even though we're actually reducing millage rates, and the average resident's taxes are being reduced, not increased, the notice is always going to say increase because we're holding the truth in taxation hearing. It's an increase over what it would be if we didn't hold the truth in taxation hearing. You're looking at, you know, 2 decreases. Which one are we going to use? Our biggest challenge is trying to hold on to as much taxable dollars as we can, revenue dollars as we can. Don't forget that while we go through all this, on the other side, we have the state taking away the personal property tax. We've got 4 years left of personal property tax after this year, and then that's gone on manufacturers' personal property. So our actual revenue stream continues to be under attack from Lansing. And this is why we hold the truth in taxation hearings, so that we can hold on to as much revenue as possible. If you think of all the new construction that's occurred, we've had 6 positive years of growth now, but like Director Salvati explained, we dropped 20% in 1 year. How long will it take us to come back that 20%? Well, you can't get there. It takes forever. I mean, we can lose it overnight, and it takes decades for us to even get back to where we were, prior to the recession. That's why when we look at the average homeowner who's remained in their home pre-recession and post-recession, their actual tax bill is less than it was in 2008, for example.
Right?
Yeah, we haven't reached back to our taxable value from 2007 yet. So
Isn't that
that's
crazy?
12 years later and we're still not back to where we were.
And yet we've had so many, you know, years of growth. Isn't that crazy? And I mean, and we're one of the healthier municipalities in the county, the healthiest in the county. So I know we've tried to make sure we didn't have to lay people off and what have you, but it's been tough, I know. Mr. Thomas?
Through you, Mr. Supervisor, to Superintendent Limita. I know that we've done this the last 3 years now. This is our 3rd time with this board. Did prior boards go through this? Is that, so we've always
Every
done
year.
this?
Every year.
Every year. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I asked.
And I think if you don't do it, you can't ever go back either.
And
Yeah,
when-
right.
When we were in a downward trend, we weren't taking these rollbacks because we had above a 1. But now that we're...
Well, I'm sorry, we didn't take the rollbacks?
Not when we were in a recession. We had a 1. We didn't have to take those rollbacks. But as you have more growth and we start recovering those rollbacks, I think they said just about every district in the entire county has taken a rollback this year. The
That-
county took a rollback even.
Mr. Supervisor, through you to Director Salvati. The millage for the mosquito and pest control, we don't take the full millage because we only charge for what we're actually paying, correct?
Yes, we charge enough to cover the bill.
To cover the bill.
Right.
Now, 1 year, for let's say that the bill was astronomical, we would not be able to capture anything greater than that we have been collecting, correct?
We could collect up to whatever that maximum amount is after the rollback. It was .23 something. We could, if we had to, we could go that high, but we can't go higher than that.
Right. So even though we're being prudent with our constituents' funds and our funds, we're just charging what, right down to the, close to the penny as we can.
We make the best estimate we can.
Best guesstimate. But if there was an increase, then we wouldn't be able to capture all the way back up to the original intended millage amount. It would always be the,
Whatever
correct?
the rollback is.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'm sorry, Mr. Massey.
Mr. Chair, there's a concern about moving forward. How do we take the information to the residents? And I think the superintendent indicated we have to use the word increase. So if we show the last page, however we decide to word it, do we still have to include increase? We have to explain increase?
The increased language is only for the public notice and for the actual, truth and taxation hearing and our public notice. That's where the state requires that you say increase. But when you're explaining to somebody, obviously you don't have to tell them it's an increase, it's clearly a decrease.
Yes, yes. So we're talking about decrease.
The increase is because if we didn't have this hearing, we would have to go back to that base tax rate. But because we're having this hearing, we're allowed to use the other numbers.
Okay.
And they call it an increase.
Yes.
But I think a fact sheet would be helpful that would include this and just compare where we were last
Maybe if I just
year.
explained that notice is calculated off a base tax rate that,
Yeah. Somehow we need to figure out just year to year that we can have a sheet that we hand out to people, or Mr. Guzak can have at the front counter with the cashiers. Mr. Guzak?
Yeah, right now, this is an excellent tool that we can have on and we can show them, but what we do now is we pull up last year's tax bill, it shows their rate, we show the proposed one, and it shows, and it's just like this, it says, okay, we're paying 6.8, well now you're paying 6.7, so they see immediately that they're paying less, okay, and that's how we do it now. But we'll definitely have this on the counter so we can show them, but we actually pull up their last year's tax bill and we pull up the new one and we show them that way too, so.
Mr. Chair.
Right. Yes. Let's listen up, guys.
Mr.
Mr.
Chair,
Massey.
I'm thinking, is it correct to say this is the state's calculation and not the township's calculation?
Well, the wording in the ad has to be as the
it
state
has to be
says.
that way.
Well, I'm not talking about the ad.
How we calculate what our millage is going to be is mandated by the state.
Okay,
So the formulas that you see for us to derive our millage rates are prescribed by the state.
Yes.
And how we're going to do it. So while it's our unique calculation to our millage, it is based upon the formulas that are prescribed by the state.
yes, that's what I'm getting
Yeah.
at, because most residents tell me, well, it's what the township is doing. They don't know it's what the state requires.
We're going to come up with some way of explaining it, I know that.
Yes.
Mr. Atkins?
Is it oversimplifying it to just say, since we've already putting it in a half of the page of the view, could we just buy the other half and put this next to it?
I was thinking the same thing.
Is that just, you're reading it anyway, and it's,
Well, maybe the person that writes the article will put that in there for us.
It's a good suggestion.
Miss Lane?
We should do it.
Because of all the
Just put it in there
confusion,
just like that.
for a couple of years, I put in the 3 years so that people could see this is what the millage was in 2008, 2009, 2011, and then I got told I had to pull it because that's not part of the state's mandated information.
What if we could do our own?
If it's a separate.
Do our own.
It's a separate.
Yeah, we can do our own.
And then,
Yeah.
but we could maybe do that mailer with the absentee vote.
Well, we certainly can do it on social media and get that out to everybody, and that's what I mean by a fact sheet that would show that. So what do you think, Mr. Lehman? We can,
The proposed millage is less than last year's millage.
right? And I like the idea even maybe showing the last couple of years, so that it, could we show 2017,
That was
18?
when the fire millage was at a half a mil.
Okay,
So it would,
show it,
it'd be
okay, that
better
would
to do
complicate
the
it.
18 and 19
Right, okay.
thing.
All right, well, we'll talk about how we can explain it better, and maybe we do something in the paper. Thank you very much, Ms. Salvati.
You're welcome.
I
Mr.
know I
Supervisor,
wouldn't want to have to explain that.
Mr.
Yes.
Supervisor, I'd like to us to propose a resolution to set the Truth and Taxation public hearing for August 27th.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion, support, any discussion? Ms. Lane?
I think we
Mr. Mansour?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Guzak?
Yes.
Mr. Massey?
Yes.
Myself and Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, it was approved.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the board will consider a resolution to adopt the police millage ballot language. And we had a 20-year millage, is it, that is coming up for renewal? And it's this board's wishes to renew it at the same rate of 1 mil. And the language, we have some language in the agenda. And then I know Ms. Lane also handed out some language, so, let's see. Just looking for the one language, I guess, I thought it was printed
No,
in
it's
the...
part of the packet, not part of the...
Oh, it's in the packet, okay, all right. So, Mr. Laddie?
Yeah, we have a proposed resolution in your packet, and the language that is used in that resolution is very nearly the same language that we used with our fire millage increase. And you recall that we had a millage that had not expired yet, and we wanted to ask for an increase in that case. And we explained to the voters that we were not going to collect the remaining eligible amount to be collected if that passed. And we have the same language here because our police millage is set to expire next year. We want to reestablish that 1 mil. That 1 mil has become, by the magic of the Headley amendment, that millage has gone from 1 mil to 0.9902 mils. And so, again, that language is very nearly the same, except the years are different. But it's also 1 mil. And I liked, Ms. Lane provided an alternative to what we have in the resolution, and it's only slightly different in it, and I think it's meant to be, in her opinion, more explanatory. It's got all of the same required elements in it, and so I guess you could decide which one of those you prefer. I am really, and I know Ms. Lane is this way too, I'm very leery of changing the language the night of a meeting on an issue this important, but I realize that changes come and ideas come, and so we should probably take a look at that. The other thing I will say for the old language is it worked pretty darn well for the fire, and people got the point when they read it. So if you want to tweak it, there's no legal reason why you wouldn't. It'd just be a matter of style, frankly.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Massey.
I think we should go with the attorney's recommendation. That is, whatever he has written, that's what we go with based on past experiences.
Support.
Okay. Let's have some discussion on it, and,
Do you have a copy of
so has this, either of the language, I mean, have your,
We show it
do we
up
go
here.
for approval of the language to the county first, or how does that, what's the process?
Since resolution.
Print it out.
So the resolution sends it there, and if they
Right.
say the language is incorrect, then we miss the boat probably at this point, right?
That would be a problem. Then again, the language that is contained in the resolution is language that they approved for the fire millage. So I don't anticipate any difficulty. I don't think the language that Ms. Lane provided necessarily is going to draw a red flag from the county either. But I know the language that's in the resolution was approved last time.
Is everybody comparing the two, or?
Yes, we are.
Okay, I'll give you a few minutes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I compared the two,
okay,
but based on what they accepted previously, the county, right?
yes.
I think we don't have much time for error here.
We have no time for error.
So-
That is a fact.
Let's go with what worked.
Okay, is that a motion, or?
That's a motion.
There is a
Support.
motion. There is discussion.
Okay.
Support again.
All right, I didn't hear the support.
Oh, yeah, support.
Okay.
So you have
Okay.
a motion and support, is that
Right,
correct?
so I think right now,
I'd like
we're
to
just gonna have some discussion, and
Gotcha.
Mr. Thomas, what's your thoughts?
I really like in the bold print where it says the 1 mil due to expire reduced to .9002 mils by required millage rollback. I think that really hits the point of the reason why it went back. Yeah, at David's.
So you're saying the one that David has?
I like that portion of it. What do you think?
Yes, he's talking, I think about mine. So I get to-
No, but this one's like reduced by, it's.
Well, we have a motion and
one,
a second.
I don't care.
And I don't really want to belabor it, but, so all in favor?
Well,
No,
this
it's
is
a
gonna be a roll call.
resolution.
What's a resolution?
Yeah.
Well, let's go for the vote then. It sounds like we have consensus.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Mansour?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Guzak?
Yes.
Mr. Massey?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mr. Chair?
Yes. Okay. With that, we will send that on to the county. Next item, C, the board will consider a resolution to set aside, board will consider a resolution to set a date of September 12th, 2019 for the public hearing regarding the consideration of a special assessment district for the repaving of Grand Walea. We spoke about this on Tuesday at length, and I think they're ready to go.
The clerk's office and the treasurer and the assessing have already reviewed the petition, so
I'll
that's
make a
why we're
motion.
ready.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Any further discussion?
Is that Mr. Mansour?
Yes.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
And it's a
Well,
resolution.
Ms. Lang, go ahead.
Mr. Mansour?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Guzak?
Yes.
Mr. Massey?
Yes.
Myself? And Mr. Chair?
Yes. Okay, the board will consider a motion to approve the updated agreement for the deputy clerk election specialist.
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion
Second.
and support. Everybody received the updated agreement that Mr. Limita gave to everybody this evening. There's, I think, 3 different changes on it, but Mr. Atkins?
I just had one question. In the term of employment language, so subject to the desire of the township clerk, this agreement shall be in effect from August 8th, 2019 to August 8th, 2024. Since this is a position that is
Serves at the leisure of the clerk.
serves at the leisure of the clerk, is it more common to have that language on a yearly basis? Or a term basis, or maybe it doesn't matter at all, but
I can weigh in. This is very unusual language. And the point of it is, again, to provide some security on our part, but also on the part of the employee, but also to recognize that nuance that whoever the clerk happens to be has to agree to allow this contract to extend into the future or not. You won't see an agreement like this in very many communities, but I think this is a very good idea for the reasons that we've talked about.
So the clerk that's coming in, if they chose to keep this individual on, that would be fine. If they chose that they didn't want to, we're not going to have any repercussions or that clerk wouldn't have any repercussions for discontinuing their service.
That's correct.
So they continue to serve at the leisure of the clerk.
Right, and in this agreement, I mean, it names our current deputy clerk, so it's not like both things have to remain in place. And if we had a new elected clerk, that clerk would have to agree to allow this agreement to continue. Otherwise, we have a different person and different economic terms.
okay.
Let me say something. Getting back to my street attorney.
Okay.
Knowledge.
Just
It sounds like there's a catchy phrase in there, and let me explain what I'm thinking. There's a legal term in there, the way it's written. I shouldn't say term, but the way it's written. If the new clerk decides he doesn't want the previous clerk it would have to go to court because we have agreed to 2024, right?
No, and that's because Ms. Henry is also a party to this agreement. And she is acknowledging and she's saying that if there is a different clerk and that clerk does not choose me as her deputy, this agreement is null and void, and I'm okay with that.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Mr. Mansour?
So just to recap, because we just saw this a couple of minutes ago, is this consistent with the terms that we talked about in the?
So the changes that you see, the compensation is what the board's
Yep.
Direction was.
Okay.
The other change has to do with IRS regulations, the retiree healthcare savings account, because we offer that benefit.
Okay.
It wasn't previously in the agreement, but it is required to be in the agreement. IRS regulations again. It does have a 10-year vest. If this person is not here for the full 10 years, then that benefit actually costs the township $0.
Okay.
Those are the changes.
Okay, thank you.
And Michigan's still an at-will state. I mean, come on.
True.
We need an hour and a half to go through that.
Okay, so there's been a motion and it's been supported. Any further discussion? And this is a motion, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. With that, anybody have any committee reports? Mr. Mansour, anything on Planning Commission?
Not for me, thank you.
Mr.
I know that they were doing some work with regard to the master plan, as far as doing some videotape and...
Yep, so just a quick update on that then. The subcommittee has met for the master plan and they've been very helpful. We've finalized the survey that's going to be conducted, and it's going to be done, I think you're going to use like SurveyMonkey is basically the way it is. It's going to be a fairly long survey, but there's things built in so that if people kind of bail out halfway through, at least we can capture that data. The other piece of this is the road show. And this is what we talked about before, where we are preparing a set of foam boards, probably 5 of them, and they would be available, and we would be encouraged as members of the township board here to take these out into the community, to homeowner associations, to service club meetings, etc. Set them up and then spend some time with the members there, getting their ideas about what improvements they'd like to see in the township, what they like about the township, etc. And then the consultant firm will take those responses back, and ultimately over a period, I think the actual foam boards will be ready next week. Over the next 5 weeks, we want to conduct these surveys and then create the consolidated view of what the survey input was. Pretty excited about this. The idea is that when we engage the public on these, we want to try and get as much specific information. If they want retail, what kind of retail? If they want restaurants, what kind of restaurants? If they're looking for amenities, what specific kinds of amenities? So that will just really make the plan that we put together a lot more rich. Yep.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Mansour.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Mansour, I didn't hear, the survey questions, are they going to be mailed to everyone or put on a website? When you just talked about the
Yep.
survey, I didn't understand that.
Yeah, so there's a couple ways. There is an idea that there's going to be a certain number of them mailed, but there's also going to be cards distributed with a quar symbol on it, and they'll direct you to an online survey, again, SurveyMonkey type of website where residents will just kind of plug it. Well, actually, whoever takes it, not just residents, because we're interested in the community as well. Whoever takes it can just enter the questions and hit the submit button.
Thank you.
Very good. Anything, Mr. Yes, Mr. Thomas?
I do. I would like to bring this up as a member of the historical task force and the Perry House task force. I would like to put forth the name Stephanie Popoff to be considered and voted on to be the representative for the next representative for the Grambling Township Historical Society. Ms. Popoff has demonstrated her willingness to go out. She has been the last 12 years now the one that has cleaned up all the sites for our burial plots. She's gone out and she cleans up all the plots. She's fixed the signage. She's the one that works with Jeff Sears to go do the cleanup, and she's very, very, very community orientated, and she's the one that does the tours with the sites. And I would like to make a motion that the board accept Stephanie Popoff as.
Well, let's put it on as an agenda item for the
You
next
told me
meeting.
we were going to do it this meeting.
Well, we sent out the 2 resumes to everybody today, so everybody should have both people that are interested.
So, can we vote on it?
Well, we don't have it on the agenda. I mean,
That's supported.
you haven't seen them?
Oh, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
here we go again.
What's
You
that?
know, Joe,
Here we go
I
again.
figured I'd just slide one right through you, buddy. Well, I'd like to bring it up for the next meeting.
Okay, well, I sent out both individuals that are seeking are on there.
Because you told me we were going to vote.
I know. We were behind, and we actually have another position that's open that you'll be getting a resume for as well, for the Genesee District Library.
Oh, good.
Bill Delaney, who has served a long time on that and one of the founders, is not going to continue. And I want to do 2 things at our next meeting with that. One is recognizing for his years of service, and then also we'll be bringing forward at least one person that Joe has suggested that we nominate for that position.
Nope, no way.
So we'll put both of them on the agenda. Mr. Atkins, anything with regard to Parks and Recreation?
No, meeting is next week. Nothing to report right now.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I have 2 questions.
okay.
Okay, when we talk about technology, it appears sometimes that we don't have enough money in the budget we don't put enough money into the budget for.
For what specifically, Mr. Manson?
Just upcoming technology. I'm thinking that it may be a good time to raise the issue now, because budget time is going to be coming up in the very near future, is that we make sure that we have enough money in the budget for all of our upgrades when it comes to technology moving forward. Do you have any comments?
I can just comment that as part of the budgeting process, we go through the capital projects plan every year, and then proposed additions, expenditures for the coming year are always in the capital projects plan, and it's reviewed every year. Every department head submits those as part of the overall budget process, and it's included in your budget every year. It'll be included in the fiscal year 2020 budget as well for your review.
Okay. Mr. Chair.
Yes.
My second question, the investment committee. I
Okay.
thought in the last week or so, we would have gotten some information to hold another meeting, because we have PFM out there waiting for some additional information, and we have to move forward on it very rapidly.
Well, I know we're gonna, I think, we do need to schedule another meeting, but I think we're waiting for Mr. Guzak to let us know.
Right, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I know that when we had the information, the cash flow, I tried to get that cash flow, I couldn't get at it. Repeated a couple times. And the reason I was trying to get the cash flow so we could send it to another representative, and I didn't get that till after I almost had to FOIA the darn thing, and then luckily Mr. Limita got copies of it so that I could send it to them. So, you know, it's going to take time for them to go through it, and they're working on it.
Well, we said that
If
we
I would
wanted
have
to.
had it at the beginning, it wouldn't have been a problem.
Well, when we met with our committee, we said that we wanted to wrap this up the end of August, and that we needed to meet with them before the 4th Tuesday.
Yeah, but
Lisa, is that your recollection, Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
so you're not even going to let the other person come in? Because I've already issued it to them and they're working on it.
Well, I thought that was going to be happening a little quicker.
Well, part of the problem was I tried to get the cash flow stuff and no one would give it to me. They said the treasurer isn't entitled to see it.
Who said this, Earl? I mean,
Well,
who
I
was
mean,
this?
I don't want to go into details right now unless you
Well,
want.
you're
Didn't you
guessing
already have it?
versions. You already did.
What?
You already had it.
No, we didn't have it. I didn't get it until after the PFM had this documents, had this.
I thought you
need to
gave
get a
him
copy
the
of it, and I
cash flow
didn't get it.
before, you gave him the cash flow before we even met with PFM, I thought,
No.
right?
No.
Yeah, they got it, it went out to all of you guys at the exact same time, so when
Yeah.
you got it for the investment committee,
No.
is the same time.
I never had.
Treasurer Guzak.
Yeah,
got
so
it.
That's why I went back and tried
You
to
wouldn't
get
have
a
been able to
copy.
make recommendations without it.
Right.
I mean,
PFM had it,
But the cash flow should be something we have on a regular basis anyway, so.
Yeah,
right,
Yes.
but I couldn't see it. You actually said I couldn't have it.
No, we said that everybody's getting it at one time.
No, that's not what the memo said. But anyway, that's
Yes.
beside the point. They're working on it, and we have to at least have them present their presentation.
Sure. Well, we need to get them on board then
Well, it
quickly.
took PFM like 3 or 4 months, and now you're trying to cut these people back to 2 weeks.
It took us 3 or 4 months to put a cash flow statement, because we had to have our,
Am I missing something?
we had to have our finance department put together the cash flow statement.
We don't have a cash flow statement? Okay.
Well,
All right. No, I
It's
don't
really
want-
not their responsibility, but they did
no,
one.
I don't want to know.
And so we passed it on to PFM, and,
That's what you were
and all of us got one at the same
Yes.
time.
That's interesting.
May I ask the treasurer a question?
Sure.
In our meeting prior to the last meeting, we talked about the cash flow statement, right?
Right, and at that meeting, I didn't have a copy of it.
No, I said prior to the last meeting, we talked about the cash flow statement. right?
The last investment committee meeting?
Not the last one we had, the one prior to.
Right.
The one prior to that, you're right?
Yes.
And I asked if I could see it, so I could look at it, and they said no, and I never got it. okay?
Nobody ever said no.
Yes, they did.
Who said no? I don't.
What did I recall what we
I
said.
got a memo
and-
that said I couldn't
And
see it.
Mr. Massey was very adamant in what his
Yeah.
position was, and that was,
See the cash flow statement?
No,
listen up, guys.
We had to have the cash flow statement before PFM would move on anything.
right, and I
And
tried to
you're-
get a copy of it, and I couldn't get a copy.
Mr. Massey was adamant that everybody receive it at the same time.
That's right.
And all of us agreed that we would receive it at the same time.
Well, when did
And,
you actually get it?
And I know that you had asked that you wanted to correct it.
I wanted to
and we-
look at it.
You said you wanted to correct it, and that was a bone of contention as well. In that we had somebody putting it
That's not what
together.
I said. I said I would like to look at it because there is
Can we,
issues that we have, that only I know because
Well,
nobody's looked at the stuff.
Can you guys schedule a financial task force meeting and
We
continue
are.
with the board meeting?
Yes. We are going to schedule that, and if the individual that you have wants to make a presentation, then we'll invite them to come in.
They do want to make a presentation.
Otherwise, we're going to move on.
They do want to. That was the
Okay.
whole purpose.
That's
We'll
task
schedule a
force
date in
stuff,
the next
guys.
couple of weeks, and if they can make it, then
Oh, you're gonna
otherwise,
cut them off.
otherwise we're going
I
to move
see.
on. We've been working on this for months now. Okay. Ms. Lane, anything that you'd like to report?
No, we've already
They asked
started
for it, they
working
told me
on
to
our
put it in.
November 5th election,
Remember that.
and we're looking forward to it, of course, being successful for everybody.
Okay. Are we in need of I think we were talking about possibly an executive session,
I'm not aware that we need one.
okay? Mr. Limita,
The only, Supervisor Bennett asked me earlier today about an update on where we were at with the city and the fire dissolution negotiations. And so if David's the one who's in charge
Right.
of those at this point.
is that possible?
Yes, it is possible, although I'll tell you that I met with Mr. Griffin on Monday, and I'm happy to communicate our progress so far in a memo,
Okay.
if that'll work. Otherwise, if you want to meet, we can go in and talk, or I can give you a memo that brings you up to date.
One's good.
What's the board's pleasure?
Memo.
Yes, memo.
Mr. Hesmond, are you okay with that, or?
Stephanie Popoff becoming the next historical person. We can talk about that. Or cash sheet, or cash flow statement.
I think there are a few open items that that we need to pin down some timelines and some dates on. So I would support talking about it tonight as opposed to a memo.
Well, it's fine with me, I mean, it won't take a long time.
Right.
If we want to have some interaction, I mean, I think
That
we
would be a
should,
first.
we should err on the side.
Well,
I always say that. No, let's err on the side of information. Let's err on the
Okay.
side of deferring.
So are you making a motion, Mr. Atkins?
sure, motion to go into executive session to discuss
Support.
fire agreement.
To discuss fire negotiations, okay, or support? Ms. Lane?
Mr. Mansur?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas? Mr. Thomas? Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Guzak?
Yes.
Mr. Massey? Myself, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Okay, start the clock.